What's better is strategic relationships. And what I mean by that is, you go get one account, that's one deal. But if you get one strategic partnership, that could be hundreds of deals.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Connections That Matter, where we have engaging conversations with Northern Colorado's best networkers, and we find out some of their tips of how we can all level up our networking skills. Today, I have Sean Kelly from Kelly Merchant Solutions. Good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andrew.
So tell us a little bit more about what you do.
What we do is eliminate credit card processing fees or drastically lower them, and also with ACH fees.
I am shocked starting a business how much credit card fees cost, and some business owners, I think they just feel like it's cost of doing business. But tell us about the options that they might have.
Yeah, so I guess it goes back to when a company needs a credit card, what do you do? Or what I did was just call my banker. Right?
Yeah.
Say, hey, and then like 3.5%, 30 cents a transaction. And it was just something to check off my list, right? Okay, on to the other 1 million things you have to do as a business owner. And come to find out years later through friends in the banking industry that it is negotiable, that there's wholesale banks and retail banks. And so it's completely possible to get rid of the retail markup. Typically business owners think they're paying 3 to 4% in credit card processing. That's off gross sales. But then there's a thing called the effective rate. So there's all the interchange fees and the hidden fees. You can see it go up to 5-6% easily. What we do is come in and do a full analysis, and identify everything. And then we bring you back behind to the wholesale curtain to get you back as much of that money from the banks to where it's supposed to be in the business, so the business can grow.
And Sean, you got your name that's also in the business name, right? So as you're putting your personal name on the business, is that an increased pressure, or is that just to get your mark on it?
I've never been asked that before. It's the exact opposite. I've had several businesses before, several successful ones, a couple stinkers. And this model, my wife and I decided we're going to do a small branch boutique and really focus on our backyard community. Ideally, initially it was going to just be in the nonprofit world, to go in and help them. We felt that they were really underserved, and try to get back as many donation dollars from the banks back to the humans and animals they were typically meant for. But I feel like it's not additional pressure, it's additional motivation, because it's my family and it's our family business, and we are, in our community, and it's a bunch of small communities that make a large community, but there's still, that small town magic around us.
Well, you're quite the networker, seen in a lot of spaces. We were talking about Taco Tuesdays and the hangout, like the groups within the groups. But how has networking been something that's helped you grow your business?
First of all, I appreciate that, because I feel like I'm relatively new to networking. In my past companies, I just didn't really have time. And so, almost 2 years ago, I joined my first chamber of commerce, and I felt like the new kid at school, kind of the wallflower. Yeah. And luckily, there was really good people there that came in and took my hand and introduced themselves to me, and really broke the ice. I feel like once ice is broken, I'm like, okay, I'm a decent person, like communicating with. But it's just to answer your question, it's just really been an amazing journey, even though it's a relatively short journey in a couple years. Just actually physically being and interacting with people and helping people, and just being around so many people that actually just don't want anything from you and want to genuinely help you. I found that through networking in action. I found that through multiple chambers of commerce in our local community, Erie, Lafayette, Louisville, and it just feels like I'm more part of the community.
So let's go into the nonprofit realm, because I know that's something that you have a passion with. But is there any specific nonprofit that you were able to, give me a case study of something that you were able to help?
Okay, typically, so I have to be very careful about that because, with businesses, profit or nonprofit, it's sensitive information.
Sure.
However, I do have permission. I have asked permission, and I've gotten permission from several I can share. The one that always pops in my head is our first big win in our local community. It's the Longmont Humane Society. When we came, it was just about 1.5 years ago, we went in and did the analysis. And we were able to identify and get back a little bit over $36,000.
Wow.
And this was from donation money. And just to kind of put that in perspective, and why this one just really close to my heart. When we did the research, and this was me talking to the leadership team there, but they said it cost about $850 a year to shelter one dog, till it finds its forever home. And so we did the math on that. Oh, man, I don't have my calculator on me, but I think it was like 43 more dogs a year. And what's great about once we are implemented, it's not savings for 1 year, it's savings every year. So, well, if you don't think about inflation, it will be 43 more dogs a year that our help, with that foundation is going to continue to do.
Really, really cool. And, when people are making a donation, they think all of it's going to the business, but it doesn't. It gets eaten up with fees and different kind of things like that. Sean, what are some networking tips that have led to your success? Because I've seen you don't just make introductions or connections. They're like big names, big connections, big. You're making some big plays. So you're a little modest, saying, "Oh, well, I'm all new," but give us some tips of how you've been able to make such quality connections for people.
Well, thank you. Flattery will get you far with me. This says too that there's the individual networking. What I've found is if you're just genuine, and you're trying to learn about the person you're talking to, the new person you're talking to, and ask questions, be curious, and really try to start connecting the dots, is not in a rushed way, but in a thoughtful way in your head on who that could help them or bring them business. If it's not you, hopefully it's me, and there's a way that I can be of value. And who knows, if I'm lucky, maybe they would make sense doing business with us as well. But I really do think asking questions, being friendly, being of value, really is like some magical things have really happened. And you can do that individually, but you can also do that at scale with organizations. I think in this day and age, people know they can feel authenticity. They know when someone's being, genuine and not just wanting something from you. And what I found is I really do like the one-on-one connections you make in networking. However, you can use that same experience and skill set and approach large organizations with the same strategy. And you'd be surprised at how much that these large organizations are more than happy to consider a partnership with you.
How do you identify the right decision maker? Give us some of the art and the science. Because if it's a small business, maybe you got a couple employees, it's easy to figure out who the owner is. But if it's a larger company, how do you get past all the gatekeepers?
Well, it's a journey. Sometimes you're talking to the gatekeeper, or you're talking to someone very large, and you don't even know it.
Sure.
One of my favorite accounts happened like that. But at the end of the day, I think it does go back to what I was saying previously, which is be a good person. It always sounds like a thing to say. I don't know if I can say that, but don't be and ask when you're asking questions. You're hopefully learning. And with the larger organizations, typically for our company, we're going in and asking, how can we help? Are you? It doesn't matter if you're a giant company or a small business or a small nonprofit or a large nonprofit. I know how hard it is to fight for every 1% in a company, and for a lot of companies, organizations, that 1 or 2% can make or break them, So we get to go in seeing how we can be of value, and it's authentic, and I think people can feel that.
Sean, when you network with that method as being selfless, a lot of times it attracts people who are selfless, people who also have that heart of a giver or heart of a connector. Have you connected with other people who are similar to you, heart of a giver, heart of a connector?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, so many.
Shout out one. Give me a like a relationship deep dive if you have permission to share. Like, how did you meet them? How did it develop? Who gave who what first? And what did that turn into?
Well, there's two that jump to mind. Can I share two?
Sure.
One first would be Jesse Levy. He was born and raised here locally in northern Colorado. And when I was new to the chambers, he just was one of those guys that just reached out their hand right away with big smile, lots of energy. No, I call him the unofficial mayor just because he was born and raised. He knows everybody. Yeah. Anytime I try to introduce him to someone, he's like, "Oh, you mean Andrew?" I'm like, "Yeah." But he just he's just really enthusiastic on helping and working with everybody, and he's made a lot of amazing connections. I haven't lived here my whole life. He has. I feel like he's saved me a lifetime of meeting people in the community. The next one would be Vicky Schock from Blue Federal Credit Union. I had no idea who she was when I first met her. It was in the beginning, and when I was doing the wallflower thing, like new kid at school vibe. And she just came up and just big smile and just asked me who I was, what do I do, and wondering. And right out the gate, I was like, I wonder who I can refer you to, and that's really grown into something amazing for Kelly Merchant Solutions and working with Blue Federal Credit Union.
So you say you want to, what are the growth plans for Kelly Merchant Solutions? What do you want to get super big, or do you like to have that small town kind of connection that you've built?
Well, my original intention, it's interesting. It's sometimes these things I've built very large, in my opinion, pretty large companies, 170 plus employees, nationwide offices in Connecticut, Washington, Oregon, California. And it was exhausting. And spiritually, I was checking all the boxes in regards to the prizes or the goals. But I was losing my family time. I was losing, I wasn't making it to dinner every night, even though I try, So the original intention of Kelly Merchant Solutions was to be very small, boutique, and like I said, focus on the nonprofits. Word kind of got out in the community, also, being involved with all the chambers and the networking in action. And so now, 80% is small businesses and 20% is probably nonprofit, where initially it was supposed to be 100% nonprofit. I would love to be in our footprint from, North Denver to Cheyenne and keep that. I feel like it's more intimate, it's more manageable. I am driven by mentoring younger people as well. I know that someone gave me a chance once. It's really cool when you bring someone in and you see them maybe get their first car or their first condo or their first house or have their first kid or their their wedding, like all those things. So I think that there's enough space between North Denver and Cheyenne where we can bring on new teammates and maybe put one in each chamber and one in each chapter of NIA. So I guess medium would be would be the size I'd like to see it at, where we still have that human connection. It's weird when you walk into your own office and you don't know everyone's name. I don't ever want to have that feeling again.
We talk about the family. A lot of entrepreneurs they work really hard to provide that, but especially when you're serving your community that your family lives in, it's super, super impactful. So I recently saw on Jesse's magazine the whole family out there get in front of the neighborhood. But what do they think about what you do versus what you really do? What stories do they hear?
Well, this business model is really amazing because I get to share it with them. Our community, and I love our community, Boulder and Weld County. There are so many nonprofits and 501(c)s, and there's so many that help human beings, but there's so many that animal rescues. And one of the really cool things is, they might see Dad, in his office with his head down and just, talking and typing all day. But on the weekends, we get to take our kids to the animal rescues they love Longmont Humane. Matter of fact, they have 2 9-month-old kittens.
I was going to ask
kitten
you.
season that was mentioned in Greet magazine. Working there, but Love and Arms is another really great one there in Erie, and they know Tito the cow, and they just they ask us all the time when we can go back, and it's been really special because I think this is different this time because our kids are getting to see our values, at an early age and seeing, what matters to us. And yeah, it's important to provide for your family, but it's also important to help others, and humans and animals all alike, need help. I know I've needed help at times, one of the hardest things I ever learned to do was ask for help. So
yeah,
I think that's a really cool thing that we get to share that with our kids.
Is it an easy sell? Hey, like I could probably help save you thousands of dollars, or let me have you do an out. Or is it a tough flip because people are just used to doing it all the same way? I guess what things do you see that are some challenges that you face?
It's a good question. I thought it was going to be an easy sell. Like when I first heard of this, I'm like, this is amazing. This is something where I don't have to charge. I'm not a burden for a business or a nonprofit. I'm compensated by banks, and I can go in and do this, amazing work that makes a big difference. I think that, well, let's just face it, merchant solutions doesn't sound like that interesting. It's not like a lot of people are, like wrapped up in just really intrigued by merchant solutions. So first of all, there's kind of that boring, glossed over part, like what, but I think. When it's a cold introduction to it, it's a little bit more difficult to explain the value and the mechanics. There's a lot of questions. On the other hand, though, when you've done a really good job for someone, organization, and then they refer you and they tell their own story, then there's a lot less resistance and a lot less understanding because someone else who had their own personal experience can share their personal experience where I'm trying to explain a business, So I think there's a different spark there that happens. So, and everyone knows the best business is a referral, right?
Oh, yeah.
So then it's, not that hard of a sell. The hardest part of what we do is find the person who can get us the merchant statements to do an analysis for.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. And after that, it's all, it's a kind of an easier process, but good question.
As someone who's trying to medium size your business, who are you looking to connect with as you continue to grow?
I want to say everyone, I want to help everyone. I know that's ridiculous. I just, if you're an organization, I'm thinking some of the nonprofits where like they have to do the emergency funding, because they're short on food, maybe for a month or two, if you're finding, or you're a small business and you're, how are you going to keep the lights on? Or if you're just struggling to have if you just had a little bit extra cash flow, it might be easier for you to, sleep at night and focus on the business instead of being stressed out. Like I want to talk to those people, Of course we can help companies that are doing fine, and they're large, and typically we can save them a lot more money because they're processing a lot more. And I want to talk to them too. It's a good account. But when I hear that question from you, the first thing I think about is the organizations, the companies, and nonprofits that are good models that just need a little bit of help. They just need a little bit of fine tuning. They typically don't have the resources available to them. To come in and I've had the benefit and luxury of having coaches and mentors and someone coming in and just one little fine tune can be the difference if you win a race or come in second place.
So Sean, when you're networking to medium size your business, I would imagine you go in a room. There's a lot of people that, with a business that you might be able to help, and there's also people that service other businesses. Your bookkeepers, your accountants, CPAs. Have you found that it's easy to get referrals from B2B businesses, or are you kind of just a better direct to business?
Really good question. I interpret that as strategic partnerships. It's great. And I try to mentor my account executives on this subject. It's great to get an account. Every account should have gratitude for, right? And a one-off account. What's better is strategic relationships. And what I mean by that is, you go get one account, that's one deal. But if you get one strategic partnership, that could be hundreds of deals, and we've done that, successfully with several groups and organizations, Networking Action being one. I think that it's amazing just how everyone is taking care of each other. But yeah, we've done really well with, bookkeepers, accounting firms, CFOs, people who understand the math and numbers where we don't have to explain the value. They kind of, the brainiacs who just are mathematically inclined, they get it right away. So it's a little bit easier in regards to your previous question, is it a hard sell?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of success and benefits of working, B2B with another business that has tons of clients that we can help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, strategic partnerships. I like the way you put that. Well, Sean, this has been great conversation. I appreciate you coming in. There might be people who are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I pay that much in merchant service fees," or as a nonprofit, maybe they didn't realize that this was for them, or there's more support. How can people get a hold of you, reach out to you to have you do a consultation?
You can go to kellymerchantsolutions.com and fill out the contact form. You can email me at Sean@kellymerchantsolutions.com. That's SEAN @kellymerchantsolutions.com. Or you can call or text 720-507-1336.
Right. Awesome, Sean. So good. Thank you so much. I look forward to some one-to-ones, and hopefully you can make a bigger impact, medium-size your business. I think that sounds really good. So, Sean, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for asking me. Thank you.
We'll see you around Northern Colorado. Thanks. Hey all, thanks for watching. I love networking and building relationships with other Northern Colorado business leaders. So if you want to come meet some of these podcast guests, meet me, or meet some other amazing entrepreneurs in Northern Colorado, I would love to have you attend one of our next events. Go in the podcast description. There's a ways that you can see our upcoming schedule, and maybe you could be a future podcast guest as well. Thanks.